The birth of the parent is the death of your former self, and you can beautifully grieve that, and it's still going to be hard. The biggest illusion is the illusion of separation, full stop, at a fundamental level. It's the same reason why we can cause suffering unto other people and other beings and animals and environments.
And so what they do is they retreat. And this retreating makes them look incompetent. We start to forget who we want to be in the relationship. And we miss the mark where we just start being someone else.
After becoming parents, only then did I notice how different we are as people, me and my partner. I believe it to be true. You're not the person you were before you had children. You're not the person she met or he met. And that's
Hi there. If this is your first time here, welcome to the Parenthood and Relationship Podcast. I'm your host, Markella Kaplani, a psychologist, a parenthood and relationship coach, and a parent myself. Together, we explore the transformative journey of parenthood and its profound impact on our relationship with ourselves, our partners, and our children, so that we can be present and show up as we envision without having to do more. Let's get into today's episode. Hello, Jason. Welcome to the Parenthood and Relationship Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
So I would like us to begin by having you introduce yourself a little bit to the audience, to tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got into doing what you do.
Great. I'm a father, and I like to start there. I'm the father to two beautiful children who are almost 6 and almost 3. Amazing to say, every time I update their ages, each podcast episode I do, I'm like, wow, they're already that old. And I purposely start there, that I'm a father, because I see that as my central role, even though I work and do all the things. I think that might be atypical of fathers to identify as a father first, but I think it's maybe what we need some more of. It's a conscious effort by me to do that. It is my greatest joy in life, truly, as I expected it would be before it started. My kids are the best. They're everything. And I run Raising Fathers, which is an organization devoted to raising a new generation of grounded, connected, and present fathers, and really ushering men through the rite of passage into fatherhood. That looks like a few things, but typically I describe it as involving kind of 3 pillars of courses and education, community, and coaching or mentoring. And that's how I've been supporting dads through this project.
How long have you been doing this?
Specifically through Raising Fathers, it's been about 18 months. And prior to that, I worked in a men's mental health organization here in Australia. It's a preventative mental health charity for boys called the Man Cave. It's about ushering boys through the rite of passage into manhood in a healthy and safe way to help them with emotional intelligence tools and social tools and ways to grow up into a version of manhood that they can be proud of. I also work with the Rites of Passage Institute that specializes in similar work, and seeing that work that I was doing with young men and their communities, I was like, at that time, becoming a dad again to my second child and seeing some other men around me become fathers and being that, wow, this is a major life transition and a rite of passage as well. And we're missing this one, right? Where no one's really paying attention to this. And these men, these young men becoming fathers need the type of nurturance that we're giving boys through teenagehood and adolescence. And that's what sort of started the spark and eventually got into this work.
That's beautiful. You're talking about patrescence. And it was very nice to see when we connected that now we've got men talking about matrescence and patrescence and this transition into identity, the identity, how it changes as we transition into parenthood for moms and dads. And I think fathers are very underrepresented in this area. As much as we don't know about matrescence, we know even less about patrescence. We talk about it so little, and it seems unfair. On the one hand, I know that for the feminists listening, for me to say that men are underrepresented may sound obnoxious in some form, but I do see that fathers, like men in that role, are underrepresented, and I would like your take on this.
I love it. Getting right into the juicy stuff. Yeah, I like to look at it as it's not a zero-sum game. You can have, both can be true, that men can be underrepresented in something, and it still be harder for women than it is for men. Actually, when we zoom out and we look at the tapestry of the family, supporting men supports women. And that for me was a huge light bulb moment that actually wasn't the first thing to come for me through doing this work. Honestly, as I mentioned before, it was seeing the men around me struggling. But as I started this work and had more conversations with women, both in my life and supporting some women in some women's circles and hearing their stories, I got to see the thread that is very clear and very strong between, but part of the struggle that women experience through matrescence is not being met there by their male partners.
Yep.
And if we can therefore be helping men to gain awareness of how they show up in the home and in their partnership, women are the direct beneficiaries of that, as are children. And so I think my take on it is, yes, men are underrepresented in the conversation. And I think that is justified and real, because the change, however profound it is, and it is very profound for us, it is not as drastic and intense as it is for a woman. And so it's fair enough. And it can be true that we need support too, and everyone benefits when men get that support. Yeah, by extension, especially mothers and children. So I think it's a win-win situation.
Yes, I think the way that you stated everything is just perfect. Exactly the way that it needs to be heard. The work that I do is also connected. Everything, like you said, is connected. You helping men is connected to, and it helps women and children. And for me, I started working with children, and I realized that parents are carrying so much load that as I do counseling and therapy with children in my office, they go back home to a dynamic that is not helpful. But it's not in the blaming sense for the parents. It's in the sense of they are not supported. And so they cannot support the child in the work that I do with them. So I decided that I would be way more effective in helping the children that I care about so much by supporting those who care for them. And so the same thing I'm seeing you say, that I want to support the mothers who support the children by supporting the fathers. Anywhere we go in this spectrum, everything is interlinked, interdependent. And I believe that if each of us is doing a part of the supporting, then we're supporting the entire system. But either way, everyone is positively affected.
100%. I couldn't agree more. It is a family system. It's a constellation. It's a cosmos. Everything's connected. Isolation is the problem. I mean, there are so many ways to characterize what the problem is, but the minute we treat ourselves as an island, or any issue as an island, I think we're missing a very big part of it. We start to lose compassion pretty quickly when everything becomes about one sole thing or one sole person or action or behavior.
Why do you think that is? And I don't know if you meant it in this way. What I mean is you're saying if we see ourselves as an island, it creates problems. And it is true that a lot of times, let's stick to men for now, but this is the case for everyone. A lot of times we see our experience as, I'm the only one who is going through this. Mothers will say, I'm the only bad mother who regrets having children every once in a while. And so they don't look into what this could mean because of all the guilt and the shame that comes along with it. I've never heard other mothers wondering whether they should have had children or not. So I just must be a bad mom. What I'm going through is an experience that's just me, and there's something wrong with me. So I would like your opinion on why is it that we turn against ourselves, in essence, and we think of ourselves as the only person who is going through this. Why does that happen?
It's a great question. I'll answer it in a maybe esoteric way, and then we can maybe get to more practical. The biggest illusion is the illusion of separation, full stop, at a fundamental level. It's the same reason why we can cause suffering unto other people and other beings and animals and environments when we see them as other than ourselves. And so we lose that compassion and that connection. And at a very basic fundamental level, everything is made up of the same stuff. And this separation or ego or whatever you want to call it is a necessary illusion for us to operate in the world and say, you're over there made out of solid matter and I'm over here. And so it's an illusion that serves us. But like any tool or any functional idea, it has a limit. And I think where that limit really meets its consequence is in the realm of suffering and personal human experience. And I'm as guilty of this as everyone else, even though I'm sitting here right now saying it on a podcast to the masses. Wow, what an insightful guy. I was up at 3 a.m. last week in my worries and in my anxieties. It's part of this human experience of the forgetting of our connectedness and the re-remembering of that and the coming back. And I think that happens in large part because of our conditioning and how we were raised, at least in the Western or weird cultures, this hyper-individualization. A lot of the messaging is around the you and the me and look after yourself. And so very early, we learn these lessons that I'm different from other people and I have my own struggles and worries. And if I voice them, especially on a podcast, what might people think of me? It's a sad and real part of the experience that we view ourselves as separate. But I've never heard, whether it's in one of the circles I run with fathers, a one-on-one session, out of my own mouth or someone else's, I've never heard something I haven't heard before, or at least an echo of something before. Never. Nothing surprising at its basic level. We're all still these like beautiful children seeking love and connection, and that gets cut off at some point, and we make reasons and stories up as to why we're not enough and why it's our fault, and we bash ourselves up about it. It's painful.
Yeah. Or it's the stories that we've heard, right? The narration that we've heard growing up as children that we're not enough, and then it became our own internal voice about how we're not enough. And so now we're very convinced that it's just us who is insufficient and can't handle it and is having a difficult time. And that's where we get to coping mechanisms. And so a lot of times, and it's something that I've definitely had in mind when I was thinking that I would be chatting with you, I was very excited to talk about the complaint that wives have is that their husbands or partners, they are not as competent as they would wish that they were. They are not as giving in the sense, not of generosity, but of doing things to help with the mental load, with the chores, with the things that have to do with the children. And a lot of times it comes up in therapy that I don't feel that he is capable. And when I work with the men on an individual level, what I see is men who are fathers who feel like they are not able to provide, that they are not doing things right. And so what they do is they retreat. And this retreating makes them look incompetent to their wives, makes them look like they don't want to provide, like they don't want to be there and give their time and their care. But what they are doing is they are feeling on a deeper level very insufficient, very incompetent. And so they retreat, which then creates a cycle of this kind of image that they give off. Why do you think that is? Have you noticed this in your work with men?
Yes, and yes. I've also noticed it in the small amount of work I've done with women. I've had the same thing mentioned. And I think there's truth to it. I hate to say it, guys. I feel like I'm doing a collective dub in right now, but we're still learning, and that's myself included. I think part of the reason that it happens is there's been a huge generational shift in parenting over the last 30 to 50 years. Men are way more involved than they've ever been in child caring in terms of time inputs. I could find you the data, maybe we can put it in the show notes, but it was something like it went up from 2.6 hours a week in the 1970s, to closer to 6 or 7 hours a week. So more than doubled the amount of time that they spend directly caring for their children. At the same time, we've seen a shift in gender roles in the workplace and society, where now women have far more opportunities. And I know there's still work to go there, but they're far more in the workforce and out of the home than ever before. Now, it would be, I think, an overstretch to say that there's been some flip of roles. I don't think that at all. I think what has happened, though, is roles are less well defined because we're doing more of what was typically the other's work. And yet the story or the lived experience we have of these roles is from when we were children. And I know when I was a kid, and this is just me, but when I was a kid, my dad worked full-time, was a professor of medicine, very intellectual, always working. It was a time when laptops came in, and so he was always working. My mum took care of the home. So that was my version of normal that I inherited. On top of that, I was watching TV. There was no Netflix yet. There was free-to-air TV. And who was the core male character that I saw consistently in my cartoons is the father, Homer Simpson, the useless, overweight, lazy, incompetent man. He was the caricature of the father in my generation. And so when you look at that combination of things as the messaging that my generation received, I had everything done for me as a young boy. And so did my father as a young boy and as a father. He barely cooked a meal. Was that right or wrong? I think it's irrelevant, really. I think that for our family and our family situation, it was acceptable and normal, and he worked and brought in the money and provided in that way. And so that pressure, he fulfilled that goal, but he couldn't clean or cook anything. And mum did that, and that was her role. And she was, from as far as I could see, quite happy in that role as being the caregiver and the mother and the ruler of the home. So there was a simplicity in that. Again, I think it's beyond mine or anyone's judgment whether it's good or bad. I think it's whatever that consenting couple want to do is great, even to this day. But I think where that then carries through is today you have men who are changing their roles, but they don't have role models to look back on from their own experience of how this stuff was done and how the life and the load was managed in the home. And so they're going, I'm pioneering here, bro. I'm doing great. And then the wives and partners are going, yeah, and you still can't do F all. Get it together, man. So I think that cultural narrative and the generational change may have something to do with it.
So do you have a message for the dads as well as for the moms when they are dealing with each other? So the two partners, of how they can deal with this discrepancy of the one feeling like, oh my God, yeah, okay, you think you're doing a lot, but it's nowhere near what I would need in order to feel supported. And the dad feeling, you're asking for too much, I'm trying a lot, I don't have the tools to feel like I'm doing a good job. I feel criticized, so then I shut down. Do you have something to say to both of them, to each of them, so that you can help them in this situation?
Look, the very first thing is to just slow down with one another and see each other in what you're carrying, especially emotionally, not the practical side that can come after. Validating one another's experience of reality is the most important first step, so that we're not just entrenched in our position. Because I even look around my house, there are areas where I walk past this one piece of mess. The most recent one would be those 2 cardboard boxes stacked next to the recycling bin. And the recycling's my job. But I would just love it if my wife occasionally squished the boxes down so I don't have to do it every time. And then it's in the walkway. And it brings up this contraction, right? It's not about the boxes. It has nothing to do with the boxes. It's about some little thing that comes up for me in that moment, which, by the way, is a valid experience, but it doesn't make it true, is my internal experience in that moment is, gosh, I know it's my role, but couldn't she just make it this tiny bit easier for me? She never touches it, and I touch her roles sometimes. So there's this immediate sense of inequity there, or just give me a leg up. And it's this silent war that I will have with her in my head for 0.3 of a second and then move on. Now, just because I feel that deeply, that doesn't mean it's the whole story by any means, or that it's necessarily true. And so when engaging with her, assuming I want to bring that up, which despite raising it on a public podcast, I have no interest in resolving with her, because it's just not a big deal, is to step back for a moment from my righteous indignance and go, that's a valid feeling. And if I feel that validly about some cardboard boxes, there's a good chance that my partner is going to feel the same about something else with just as much vigor and strength. And if I want to feel validated, I need to validate their experience first. And first, to do that, we just need to slow down together and enter a space where our intention for that conversation, assuming it's a conversation to have, is one of connection and healing. Because if it's about winning, or we think it's about the boxes, the war is lost before it's begun. So it's not a war.
Like you say, but like you say, we enter these conversations with the practical things in mind. We are trying to resolve the practical. We don't get into it with the emotional. And a lot of times it comes down to logistics. We talk about the surface level issues, so the cardboard boxes, when in reality, what we want to say, what we want from our partner is to validate the experience. But the thing that I hear so much is this comparison of, I work all day. She could just handle that because she stays at home. Why is she so tired is the one thing I'll hear a man say. And then I'll hear the woman say, but he doesn't have to think of all the appointments. He doesn't have to carry the children when they're sick. He doesn't have to think of drop-offs, of school trips, of parties, of gifts, of all these things. How can he forget the one little thing that I told him to do? And you hear both of them, and it's for me, sometimes I sit there and I listen, I'm like, wow, you're both right in a sense. But they both sound very offensive to one another. And they stick to these positions. And it sounds so invalidating. I work all day. What is she doing? Why couldn't she handle that? And I want your take on how can we help men who have been, like you say, conditioned to think that this is your role. So it's not their fault entirely either. This is also society's fault. They've been conditioned to think that this is the most important thing for men. But if this is the most important thing for men, and I'm a man, and this is the world that I live in, then this is the most important thing you can provide, right? So I am providing the most important thing. I'm out there working, busting my butt to work, and she's complaining that I didn't put the dishes in the dishwasher. How ungrateful. How can we help shift the perspective? Because it's not about who's right and who's wrong, but there is a big gap in perspective.
Yeah. Oh, you say such beautiful questions, and I love how you verbalize these challenges. I find myself laughing as you speak about them, and I've listened to some of your episodes, your solo episodes, and I just find myself vigorously nodding, somewhat ironically, I guess, as I'm cleaning up the house. When I listen to podcasts is typically when I'm tidying. Go me, I'm a man who tidies. Woohoo! That's a joke. How do we help them shift perspectives? Okay. What I heard in what you were saying was that righteousness comes from, in his world, he sees that as important. So it's the most important thing, right? I think there's a bridging of worlds to be done. And one way that I like to do this is by having couples talk through values. Because values, I find, are powerful anchors that are almost the single decision that makes 1,000 decisions afterwards. They're a true north or north star that we can orient towards in the micro decisions of everyday life. Why is that important here? There may be a disjunct between what that man values as important, either as a man for himself or in life or for his family, and what his partner does. Or we may find, ideally, that actually they have quite similar values, and where the lack of meeting of the minds is happening is that they're not seeing the connection between their own activity set and how that is achieving their common goals and values for their family. That when he characterizes provision as purely financial and doesn't see that remembering birthday parties and that our kid likes that drink bottle on this day, but not this day, is also providing it for the family, he's missing something. And that's where those channels can open, is saying, this is how I provide for our family. Is that important to us in this way? And I think where that is particularly helpful is when we may not share the exact same values all the time, but when we recognize the other's values, it's far easier for us to acquiesce and to meet their needs because we realize it's one of their core values. For me, and I might briefly just give a small example if that's okay.
Yeah.
For our family, the value of family is really paramount and important. But then how that plays out can be different. For my wife, quality time as a family is really important, and her religiosity and sort of faith and life and religion is really important. So that means there'll be times where he goes and does something aligned with our faith and tradition with the kids and does that independently of me, and I get some time to myself, which is great. But on occasion, she'll say, hey, this one's an important festival. I'd love you to be a part of it. And for me, when she asks that, I just never, ever enter, and it's taken some work to get here, but I'm proud to say at this point, I never enter a space of how do I get out of this one? Or how do I argue that my thing is more important? Okay, it's this thing. This is one of her core values. Unless there is something genuinely that's one of my values that it's going to rub up against and there happens to be a clash and we need to have a conversation about it, just because if I have a preference to work that day or to do that social event, it's just there's a switch in my mind that goes, it's really important to her, just do it. And I don't need to question it. And it's not about whether it feels fair or right or balanced. It's like, this is really important to her and she's made the ask. I'm saying yes. And I know she deeply appreciates that. And because I know it's a value thing, it's not about the event. It's about what the event represents to her and how she's seen with her family at that event. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm coming. Let's go. And I'll even try and come enthusiastically, even though it's not really my thing, because I know that's important too. So values, I think, when we can get clear on them, it can help cut out the noise, just like how it's not about the box. When we're working out what's important to us, what anchors and guides us as individuals, as a couple and as a family unit, it's just simplified a little bit. And we get to understand the real reason that's sitting beneath the tension or the unmet need, not the dishes or whatever the thing happens to be in that moment. Yeah.
I love the example because it also outlines something that I've been thinking about a lot is I see many couples struggling with accounting, and not in the financial sense, but in the I've done this much and you've done this much, and this balance that you referred to. And what you are saying, and I want to point out if it wasn't heard in this way, is that you are seeing why it's important to your wife and that it's about her. It's not about you. You don't feel like it's a personal attack. You're trying to convert me into something, into liking something that you like. You are trying to make me go and be enthusiastic about it too, so that I can be more like you. A lot of times there's this struggle that happens because I feel it's personal. It's a personal attack on me, that you want me to be more like you, instead of looking at it in the very healthy way that you just described, and to say, okay, that is something that you value. And because I am with you and I love you, I want to do this for you. And not with a pouty face, because then, of course, there's no point in doing it. Because a lot of people will do it and they'll go there and they will be pouty and pissy. And they're like, why didn't she or he appreciate it? I did it, right? But they were proving a point in a passive aggressive way that, yeah, I came, but you didn't convert me. You didn't make me like it, okay? I didn't enjoy any second of it. And they don't get why that is offensive. They're thinking, I did the thing. But it's not about going to the event. It's about, are you supporting me in what I like? You don't have to like it, but are you there with me, right? And so it's about this connection that we are trying to create. And what happens a lot of times is that we see each other in a way, I gave this to you, I expect this back from you, and we lose the connection part.
Yeah, it's such a great point, the poutiness. I sometimes fail at that too. And I think, like, for those out there that might be listening, they go, but I bloody hate it. How do I do it? Yeah, I think so much of this stuff is about humility and humanity and showing our face and our heart to our partner, that I can guarantee if you go to that thing or whatever it is for you, and in the midst of it or even on the way, you say, I'll take my example and say, hey, we're 2 hours into this event. And I just say to her, hey, I'm doing my best. It's hard, but I love you and I'm here. What I'm communicating in that moment is I'm trying. I fucking hate this. Can we go soon? But I'm here for you and I'm trying. I love you. And depending on how I choose to, like, what the energetic of those two statements is very different. The first one is about her and me almost coming with a little bit of sheepishness, being like, I suck at this. I don't like this, but I love you and I'm here as long as you need. She will receive the, look how hard he's trying. Whereas if I come with, I hate this, can we go soon? She gets the lump in her throat, the heavy shoulders, and goes, oh, I didn't know it was going to be a ball and chain exercise. I wanted you here with me. Even though my internal experience is the same with both, the valence is different. The first one is about serving her. And I think for so much of this, it just takes again, so much easier said than done, and full compassion to all the failures that we all experience consistently. But this taking the time to just slow down and say, okay, I am feeling this right now. This is valid. What am I looking to get out of this interaction I'm about to have with my partner or my child or my colleague or anyone else? And not get out of it for me, but what would be a productive conversation or event for this, again, this constellation. If we're looking that we're not separate and we are one organism, what's best for the organism? And the organism will thrive when we look at it that way. But each organelle and piece within the organism might not get exactly what it wants all the time. Welcome to being an adult.
Yeah, because in the second version that you described, in the first version is, I am trying to serve you, but this is hard for me. In the second version is, I'm doing you a favor.
Yeah.
Get me out of here now. I did you the favor. Get me out of here now. And so then it ruins all of what you did, because now you've tainted it with this whole time I hated being here. And the point wasn't just your presence. The point was you are here supporting me. And by making it seem like it was such a hard and bad time for you, then you've taken away the support. And so that's where it gets a little bit lost in translation of how ungrateful. She knew I didn't want to go and I went. Why does she seem mad at me now? You know, and it's, it wasn't about that. I want to move on to...
I'll say it again. I'm such a fanboy. If I ever need or require relationship counseling, I'm coming straight to you. You're the best. You're so good at
thank you.
Getting to the heart of the matter. It's beautiful to see. So keep going. You're great.
Thank you. You're very insightful, and I love the fact that you take time to think of your answers and you voice them also in such a way that is so careful to the experience of both the man and the woman. I like that you come into it with a very objective perspective, even though, and it's very easy for me as a woman to defend the women and for you to defend the men. But I love how this conversation seems to be very balanced in a way of, we're here to help, like you said, the organism. I love the analogy. We're here to help the organism. Each organelle is important and it may be doing a different function, but each is important and each needs to feel valued because all of them together make up the organism. So I like the analogy. I want to move on to something that I had in my list of questions for you. And I'm thinking of a lot of dads that have voiced this difficulty. And I think it's important that they hear this from you. There are fathers who, at the beginning stages especially of parenthood, of fatherhood, they find that they don't feel as confident in taking care of the young child. And they also feel frustration and boredom when it comes time to play with the little one, because it's not too exciting. And it's not like only men say this. Moms, women will also express this frustration that I absolutely adore my child, but, playtime at this level is just so boring.
Yeah.
How do we help dads who want to be more involved, but then find themselves very frustrated and say, I can do 5-10 minutes of this, but no more? How do we help them move past this frustration?
Yeah. There's a few threads here. Just thinking where to start. Okay, I think the first thing is just to acknowledge that frustration is a critical part of the learning process. If you look, and this one of the reasons I love being a parent and having children is they are the most beautiful mirror to remind us of who we are at our essence. We get to see them through life. And take a toddler or say a 3 or 4-year-old trying to build the classic example of trying to build the block tower, right? And then it falls and they get frustrated and they want to throw the block and they're angry. They're learning, and that frustration is normal. Again, the myth of separation feels like a bit of a theme here, is that we think as adults that we're beyond this. We're not. We are. And when we become a parent, we are a baby parent. We're a parent of a baby, but we are a baby as a parent, fumbling through the world, trying to build our tower. And being with an infant, particularly in, again, I'm speaking in generalities here, but for most of our listeners, I think it will be true, living in a culture where we don't rear children in communities, we haven't had the training that would have happened by osmosis in tribal cultures, where the cousins and the brothers and the sisters and the cousins of the cousins look after each other and raise each other. And so we're behind when we reach this critical stage of new parenthood. We have missed a whole bunch of training that we would have got had we lived differently. So it's a myth that this kind of parenting comes naturally. It comes naturally to some of us and in some ways, but it's a skill like anything else. And the building's going to fall over a lot and it's going to be frustrating. So just to start off with that, it's normal and it's not your fault that it doesn't feel right.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Pleasure.
It's so important to hear that we are not supposed to naturally just know how to do this. Sorry for interrupting. I just had to say
no, not at all. Not at all. That would be just the first piece. And I just say that again because everything is made harder by the self-judgment that we put on ourselves for failing. And it's normal to feel the frustration. Okay, so then how do we do it all? I think the first is in that recognition that we are a fumbling baby is also that what we do have is the ability to articulate ourselves and ask for help and support. That can be from our partner, who, let's be honest, guys, a lot of the time, my wife does just know how to do things that I don't know how to do. And that's awesome. And part of what makes it harder is if we pretend or feign competence when it's not there. God, women are smart. Like, they're going to know, man. They can smell it from a mile away that you're just guessing. And it's okay to say, I don't know how to do this. Can you help? And it's okay if she says, I don't know how to do it either. Let's work it out together. If it's a practical thing, look it up on YouTube. I learned how to bathe a baby from a YouTube video, like bathing a newborn with the thing behind the neck. And it worked. It took me 3 minutes of YouTube watching and I knew how to bathe a baby. Previous generations, I don't know how they learned stuff like that. But the practical stuff you can pick up. Yes, true. Midwives and doulas, yeah. So the practical stuff you can pick up, but acknowledging that you don't know it. I think where it can get a little bit more sticky is when a mother is more competent at something than the father, particularly something like being with the child in general and the child's crying. And the dad walks in and mother goes, he's been at work all day. I need a break and he needs to build his competence anyway. So I'm gonna let him go for this. And the baby's crying and is struggling and is fumbling and effectively being a Homer Simpson that's trying in all of it. And she's got this internal tension going, how much longer do I let him fail at this? It's not going well. And I could fix this really quickly. So then she has this kind of cognitive dissonance inside of her of, do I go in and fix it and be the boss again and infantilize him or patronize him? And he's going, I'm doing my best with the resources that I have and I'm struggling and I can't even get this right. That's really hard. It's probably a whole chapter just in that, but just acknowledging that's hard. Yeah, we could be here all day if I get into that one. So I'll just go to one super practical thing that can help with the playing bit. Firstly, there's some quite good evidence that fathers, their way of bonding with their children is through play, and that's a biological thing. Our peak oxytocin release is through play, especially rough and tumble play at age of times and ways. Whereas for mothers, it's through nurturance and holding and breastfeeding is their peak oxytocin release. We are biologically hardwired to play with our kids and to enjoy it. And it's the best. I think where we might stumble in that is firstly thinking that there's a right way to play. There's a safe and unsafe way to play, but that's fairly obvious. There's no right way to play. Again, if we accept that we're babies or children, enter their world of play with them, whether they're a newborn and play looks like cooing and making funny facial expressions that they mirror back at you, or whether they're a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old and playing dollies or playing imagination games with them, or older and sitting on the Xbox with them or whatever they like doing. Where it can get hard is when it's not something that the task is not something that we inherently enjoy. And so we start watching the clock and it gets hard. I mean, I don't like playing dollies with my daughter. I do not like that task. I just don't like it, particularly because it's going to tend to event session. I don't like it. But what helps me is one very practical thing from hand-in-hand parenting, that's a parenting methodology, is this thing called special time. It's very simple. You set a timer and you say to your child, you can call it whatever you want. I happen to just call it special time with my daughter. It has to be one-on-one, and it's child-centered, non-directive play, meaning, firstly, there's no distractions around. Put your phone away. Maybe just put the timer on. And the child leads. And you go for this next 15-minute period. You're in charge with some practical boundaries around it. Let's do whatever you want to do. And the child just leads and plays. And you'd be surprised how helpful having a timer on is, because it allows you to actually forget the time, because you have the safety of knowing it's not going to go forever. And because your phone is away and it is for a defined period, you actually become way more present because you have that end in sight. And you may just find that by the time the timer goes off, you want to restart it and do it again, because you've entered a portal of presence with your child where you're not loathing the fact that you're playing Barbies again. You're so present with them and in their world that you get to experience what they experience, and you get to experience them experiencing it, which for me, there's no greater joy than seeing my kid being with me and doing something together. And just that process, setting the timer, putting the phone away, it's so small, but it can do so much. That's something practical.
Yeah. You had described that to me when we chatted before the interview, and I do like it because it would help me as well. For instance, I have a son, so he doesn't want to play dollies necessarily, but he has gone through a phase at some point where he wanted to play character games, so pretend and talking to each other. And, you get into you're not supposed to say this. The character's supposed to say that. So it's not only am I doing an activity that I dislike, now I have to do it exactly like you want it to.
Yes.
And it just felt so awful. I didn't like those types of games when I was a kid. My sister to this day tells me it was so obvious you were doing me a favor playing Barbies with me.
Cute.
It was a very tough time for me trying on the one hand to play with him and then trying not to look like I resented every second of it, because I was like, yeah, but he wants me here and it's so special and beautiful that he wants to play with me, but I just want to rip my skin at the same time. And so having that end in sight, that this is 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it may be, knowing that it's coming to an end, for me, listening to you say it, it put me at ease immediately. And I thought, how come I didn't think of doing that? So thank you for sharing this practical tip, because it does, to me at least, make a lot of sense that it would calm me down, that this does end at some point. And children are so good at following guidelines. So if it is when the timer goes off, we stop. They may be disappointed some days, but they get it. And it becomes an easier transition for them as well. So I love the practical tip that you shared. Any other practical tips that you have seen work with either dads or moms or couples specifically, since we focused a lot on couples today? Are there any exercises that you might assign, any tips, like the value one that you said, that's something. And so I'm thinking, as someone who likes to give out a little bit of an assignment every once in a while, couples could do this as an assignment to each one to go off in their own ways, write their values, and then share them with one another and why they're important to them. Is there anything else that you would like to give for couples to do, either separately or together, so that you can help this connection, maybe in terms of this separation. Like you said, it became a theme in our episode, to help us to start to feel like we are one. We're not rivals. We're not trying to prove to each other who's better and who's doing things the right way or the wrong way. Is there something that you could share with us?
Yeah. So I went on date night last night, right? We haven't been on date night in ages. It was great. It was great. One of the things I loved about it is, for the first time in a long time, we got in an ideological debate about something, and like relatively passionate. And it never entered the realm of like anger or resentment. It was purely intellectual, but it'd just been ages since we'd got into a little back and forth about. So I said, no, you should listen to that podcast episode. And there are many studies. He's like, well, there are studies about everything. And I was just so happy that we had that experience again, you know, where we were so lost in our shared experience that we got to argue over something that's not that important, but get fired up. It was great. And I share that because particularly early on, it's very hard to get a date night in, and it's hard to enter that state. We don't enter it enough. One thing I offer, and I do practice myself with my partner, is something very simple called the check-in. And you can do this in a frequency that is daily or weekly or every other day, but it is ideally something good to book in the calendar because it will vanish if you don't. And really what it is, it's an antidote to how practical and logistical life can become as a married couple, particularly with children, where everything's about the boxes and who's doing drop off tomorrow and have we got enough soy milk and whatever the thing is. It's never ending. It's never ending, which, by the way, is a huge barrier to intimacy, is this belief, which is a whole nother side thread, but this belief that we need to have everything done in order to feel sexy and be together. BS. That list will never get done. Get in the bedroom, get working, because that list will never die, but the romance will. And in a similar way, this is another form of intimacy where all we do is, again, we can set a timer if we want to. We don't choose to set a timer, but you might like to at the start of, say, 5 minutes each or even 3 minutes each. And ideally, you choose a talking object. That might be a special object like a crystal or a candle or a cup or whatever. And it's something that you hold, and the person who's holding it is the one who is talking, and the person who is not holding it is not to talk. That's important, as you'll see in a second, because all I do in the check-in is it's a one-way check-in of how I'm really doing today. And that can be about anything. You might choose a structure. One is a high-low buffalo structure, a high of my day, a low of my day, and buffalo is something random or funny that happened today. Or you might say, what am I grateful for today? Or we just do free form. How am I doing? What do I just want to speak out into the space and be heard in? And the reason that's important is we have a shared life. And it just might happen that one of the things that I share about that's a challenge for me right now is something that my partner wants to solve for me, but I'm holding the talking object, not them. And that prevents, very often, it's the male partner who wants to say, oh, have you just tried this? And the classic female partner says, I just wanted to be heard. I didn't want to be fixed. So that the talking object is helpful for that. And it allows me space just to air out whatever I want to air out. And then we switch. And there's no right of reply in between. There's no, oh, something you checked in about triggered me. Now, can I clear this? This isn't that conversation. That can happen later if you want. This is just me one way talking to you and you one way talking to me, with the hope that in doing so, we can see each other and have no fear that the other person is going to try and problem solve or make it about them. This is just about me for these 5 minutes or however long I choose. And then after that, say, great, I'm going to open the laptop and watch Netflix now. I'll see you in bed. Or it may spark a conversation and some intimacy and closeness. It doesn't need to be an ideal outcome, but at least you can say by the time you've gone to bed, you've had a real conversation and you know how your partner's doing today and they know how you're doing. And for me, if you can do that every day, and we don't, by the way, but if you can do that every day, I mean, that's pretty good recipe for a relationship of intimacy and understanding each other's worlds, at least.
I love it. I feel like this episode specifically, is just such a masterclass And I'm so grateful that you're here and you're sharing your wisdom and all these insights. I would love, before we start wrapping up, I would love to get to one of the questions that I had written down. It's going to not go specifically with the flow that we're in right now, but I do want to get to this one specifically. It is, how can moms support their partners into fatherhood, stepping into fatherhood, but also feel like they are being supported themselves? So not something that they will do and then feel like, oh, I have to take this on as well on top of all of the things that I'm carrying, but something that if moms who are listening start to hopefully understand the experience that fathers have, then they want to support, but they feel, I can't take this on. Is there something easy that they can do that comes in such a way that they can support their partner and then reap the benefits of also being supported themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I love how you phrase things. It's absolutely accurate that her supporting him, so that they're both supported, should not entail her having to carry even more. So like, full agreement there. And I actually don't think it's her role. And this is part of why what I provide through Raising Fathers as well is a men's group that I do in person, and it's starting online soon. It was partly born out of a recognition that my wife, for me personally, my wife does not need to be everything to me. She doesn't need to meet all of my needs for us to have a beautiful relationship. And I don't want to make this judgment for other people, but I definitely feel it to be true for me and my community of men that I interact with. It actually doesn't feel optimal that she does and is everything for us and meets all of our needs. That there are things I'm very open with my partner, and I've confided in her about a range of challenges and issues and struggles, and she beautifully wants to help and does. But there have been times where I've just felt like the interaction we're having isn't hitting the mark for me. And then I bring it to and I'm very blessed and privileged to have a kind of almost council of wise male friends that I engage with in a structured way, through the circle, but other ways too. And I bring the same thing to them, and somehow the way I'm received and the way it's processed, I walk out and I'm like, that's what I needed. It was just a different audience and a different way of being. And it means that I can come back, and it's not something that she needs to hold for me. It's not something that she now has on her mind. And again, I want to be really careful here. I don't believe that men opening up to their wives burdens them. I think most women want more of that, and it's a beautiful thing. It's just that there is work that can be done outside of the relationship that can bolster and strengthen the relationship, and it just feels better. And I think this is one of those where I think, to get to specifically to answer your question, where I think mothers or mothers-to-be can help is, if they're listening to this, is the recognition that the transition to fatherhood is a rite of passage for the man, just as it is for the woman. There will be challenges that are not equal in immensity, but are equal perhaps in how they're perceived by that person. And it's going to be challenging. Change is hard. It's a fact of life. Change is constant, change is inevitable, and change is hard. It's how we choose to navigate it. If she can help make him aware of that fact in a gentle, inviting, open-handed way, and then point him in the direction of some things that he can then do on his own volition, fantastic. But that's all she needs to do. That might be sending him this podcast or a different one about the transition to fatherhood, or a book, something that helps him without saying, hey, buddy, you better play catch up because it's going to be real hard and I can't be carrying you. Not that energy. Just, hey, babe, I listened to this podcast. It was really interesting. And they were talking about fatherhood, and I think you might love it. Check it out. Just like you'd send them a song or a different podcast. I think the second men feel like, oh, what have I done wrong? What's she telling me to do now? It's this deer in the headlights, and defensiveness can come up.
Right.
And then ideally, if there are people, especially local to him, if possible, who can then be supportive in helping him process that transition, whether that's through formal therapy or informal things like coaches and men's groups, courses, books, all of that's fantastic. But ideally, it's with real people synchronously, where he has the ability to talk and process. Every man can gain access to it. It's just in a way that suits him and with people he feels comfortable with. And the more of us out there that are doing this work, the better. And so I just hope that, more people start supporting men in this way, and people can find the flavor of ice cream that they like and that suits them.
Yeah. I like the part where you pointed out the way that it needs to be presented, because you caught me before I asked the question. I was going to oppose and say, yeah, that's easier said than done, because a lot of times the wife will say, here is a podcast that I heard, and there will be defensiveness. Like, I've heard this several times. My husband has said it to me, like, oh my God, all these articles and all these podcast episodes and all the things that you're learning, just live the experience. And there is this defensiveness a lot of times of, I don't want to read a book or listen to this podcast that will tell me what to do. I want you to just trust me for me to do it. I don't want your direction. And it seems like a directive. Do it my way. Get trained by my book or my favorite podcaster. And so I might send the episode, and then the episode never gets heard, right? So it's very important what energy we do it from and how we word it. To be a supportive thing. If you want, I recognize that your experience is different, that you might want to feel heard as well. I think this helped me understand you better. So I wanted to share it with you because it opened up some things for me, and I can understand you better. So now you lower the defenses and they're able to listen rather than feel directed. Because a lot of times what I see in couples is a parent-child relationship where the one, usually, not always, the one is the mother, the wife is the mom, and the husband is the child, although I have seen it in reverse as well.
Sure.
But it is so common to see couples being in that dynamic. And so what you're saying is so significant. I hope people are really listening to what you just said. It starts to break that pattern to say, you are not supposed to do everything for me, and I'm not supposed to depend for everything on you.
Can I add one more layer that might be helpful, but also confronting? Before you send the episode or the book or whatever it is asking yourself the question, why do I want them to see this? If the answer is because I'm frustrated that he's not doing enough, that he's not learning enough, that he's not where I'm up to, he's going to feel it, because it's probably a dynamic that's already within the relationship. And this is just adding another, to use the metaphor from before, another block on the tower that's going to fall. And better to hold off sending anything. And in a moment where there isn't conflict, particularly if you're both in good moods, in that challenging conversation about how you're really feeling. Because that may then, if you reach resolution, ideally in a meeting of your hearts there, you may just find him going, oh my God, babe, in an ideal world, babe, I didn't know that's how you felt. I feel you. What can I do? And he's going to ask you for stuff. Send me episodes. Give me books. I'm so in now that I see where this is coming from in you. I want to show up for you. I thought I was. I totally get it. I'm so sorry. Let's go. Again, that assumes the conversation goes well, and there are so many landmines to navigate in that. But yeah, I just think that's an important one to just self-examine first.
Now you've got me thinking of another question. And it's really important. And I want your insight, not just for our audience, but for me as well. I've noticed something, and I could do a study on it. I think the statistics are coming in a way. I've noticed that when women call me for couples therapy, things are at the beginning-ish stage of breaking down. They have broken down to an extent, but the chances of things going better are higher. However, their husbands or partners are not necessarily that bought into coming. I've noticed that even though statistically you don't expect men to call, I get a lot of husbands, partners, men calling me for couples therapy, which is great on the one hand. On the other hand, I have noticed that those couples that come in to work with me where the man has called, they are at a stage that is very critical. They have let the problems fester for a very long time. And it's as if men realize the problem in the relationship very late into the game. And when they do, they're so bought into doing something. They really are so there to solve the issues. But it's a trend that I'm noticing that it has to get to a point where the woman has almost, if not already, given up on the relationship. And I want your explanation, your insights on why this is and how we can help couples reach a stage where they are both understanding that there is an issue there. It seems like when a woman starts to bring it up, the man genuinely, it's not because he doesn't care, but with a genuine response, but there isn't any problem. You're making this bigger. You're nagging. You are creating problems out of nowhere. And we're fine. I hear this all the time. He kept on saying, we're fine, and ignoring the issue. And then we get to 6-7 years later, like the Gottmans say, which is when they tend to ask for therapy 6 to 7 years after the problems have started. And then now you see a man all fired up to solve all the issues because he realizes he's going to lose her. And she's already gone most of the time.
Yeah. It's too late. Yeah. You've asked the $1 million question. I understand. I'll give you a perspective, but I don't have an answer for it. I wish I did. That was going to make it all better. Look, it definitely matches the trends in help-seeking behavior from males and females. Women statistically seek help. Let's take it out of the couples realm and just take it for mental health support. Women seek help far more quickly and frequently than men do. I was reading an article yesterday by someone from the Movember Foundation talking about how it was, the medical context. They were asked if they were okay, and apparently they had a partially collapsed lung because they just thought it would go away and get better before they sought help. It's like, it'll be all right. And it wasn't all right. And the same thing happens in the mental health world for men as well, is we are far less likely to seek help. And if we do, it's far later after the problem has started. Again, I can find you the exact statistics on it because it was in an article yesterday, but I can't pull them from the top of my head. I sense that it's a similar extension here for the couple, that if that's his own internal calculus, then the same is going to apply in his relationship, that he goes, well, until I'm in crisis, surely I can resolve this. And this might be part of this kind of macho, ultra self-reliance caricature of masculinity that so many of us have inherited, that we wait until we realize we can't do it alone to say, hey, I need some help. And that there's some sort of shame in asking for support. And the fear of loss is a very strong motivator. As we know, like loss aversion is a much greater motivator than what we can gain. And it is such a shame that often it happens too late. I don't know the answer. I wish I did. I think so many people could be doing so much better if they just weren't. Again, even the word issue. What if instead of saying we have an issue or having relationship problems, it's like going, I'd love to see us thrive more as a couple. And I could get better at this too, by the way. And just saying to my partner directly, hey, let's say we're a 10 out of 10 right now, which we both know we're not. But let's say we are. What would make us a 12 out of 10? What could we both be doing? What aspect of our relationship could improve? It'll inevitably bring something up. And that lowers the
defenses.
Yeah, it's positively geared in my course for dads. I talk about it that you're co-CEOs of your family incorporated, and that you dictate the culture of your organization. And your family is an organism, an organization. It is a collection of people on a shared mission trying to exist together and do it well. And it's hard. Like running a business or an organization is hard. And challenges come, and there are times where you want to fire them or quit. That's normal, but like you have HR meetings and you have your culture code or your value statement, and you work on stuff. And my wife and I, another little quick practical one is we have a Sunday night meeting that's got an agenda, and we pull up the calendar, and it's like your Monday morning meeting in an organization to just organize the logistical stuff that needs to get done so it operates more smoothly. And every time we miss our Sunday night meeting, which happens, life feels way harder that next week. Way harder. Why didn't you tell me the cleaner was coming? I didn't know you had this on a Thursday night. What are you? Everything's in disarray, and that's just logistics. But the same in an organization, you'll have your team bonding trips and exercises and your after work drinks and your get to know you games and your gift Christmas gifts. You got to invest in it. And it's obvious saying it out loud, but it's the same here. And so you could look at it as starting early, is just saying, like, how do we make this culture even better of our family?
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast episode. I don't know if you know it's my favorite, the Diary of a CEO. And I was listening to an episode that he was having with Esther Perel, a guru in the relationship world. And she was saying the exact same thing that you're saying now, that if we treated our businesses the way that we treat our relationships, our businesses would fail. If we just said, okay, it has gone well, the startup phase was great, things are running, and we just let it go and just trusted that because things started off well, the foundations are good, it's going to hold, the business would fail. But I have seen this in the couples that I work with, that sometimes it's beautiful because the intention and the illusion under this whole thing is beautiful. We loved each other so much. We were so perfect for each other that we thought it would hold us. This love would just hold the relationship. And we relied on this love. And on the one hand, it is really romantic to see that, yes, there was deep connection there, so much so that they just felt like, I could fully release.
It'll just work.
Yeah, exactly. If you just fully release means I just give up and now I think it just drives on its own. This is not a self-driving car. It's going to crash. You need to put the work in.
Totally. Yeah. And that's why it's such an important choice, who we choose. I think it's the most important one that we make in our life. We choose to live our life. Yeah. Again, you become part of an organism, particularly then with children. Your life, when you have kids, it's no longer about you. And that's confronting, particularly in a culture that's all about you, or inspires and motivates us to look after number one. Like, you ain't number one anymore. And it's the sacrifice. It is the sacrifice. It's the sacrifice of self. So, like, who we choose to partner with and do all of it with, it's a big deal, but it's never going to be, it won't take care of itself. Like you said, it takes work.
And who we choose to be, I think we also forget that. Who do you choose to be? Sometimes along the way, we start to forget who we want to be in the relationship. And we miss the mark where we just start being someone else. We lose the person that we wanted to be. And I'm not talking about this idealized version where we're just running ourselves mad with obligation and doing things and being accepted, but I'm talking about, who do you want to be as a partner? Not just who you want your partner to be for you, but are you the partner that you envisioned you would be for your wife, for your husband, for your someone, for your other half? Are you that person for them? Before you start to question, are they still the person that I thought I was choosing to be with?
I think that piece, this came up at one of our circles as well with someone. He said, it was in an anonymous question that we put in the hat. And he said, after becoming parents, only then did I notice how different we are as people, me and my partner. And I felt sadness arise in me when I heard that, particularly because my perspective, and this is a very rite of passage lens to put on parenthood, but I believe it to be true, is you're not the person you were before you had children. You're not the person she met or he met. And that's a good thing. I'm with an evolving being. Assuming we get married in our 20s, 30s, whatever, we've got generations together. Why on earth would I, in my 70s or 80s, want to be the person I was in my 20s? And why would I want to be with a 20-year-old? I want to be with someone who's gone through the journey of life and changed and evolved and is so different to the person I met. And we chose through the work to grow together instead of growing apart. Parenting, for me personally, has changed me probably more than any other life stage because of all the obvious things. Like, if we can choose to embrace that idea that what I'm trusting will remain in her or in my partner is their essence, or if you want to call it their soul or the core of who they are, will remain, but it might look different. And just as their body changes, their interests might change, their social circles, how they want to connect. And if I choose to see that essence and that light in amongst all of that, and that's what I can attach to for my certainty and my security, but then I can embrace everything else, as a manifestation of that light, maybe I can love it more easily and see it as an evolution, not a, oh, she used to be into that, or she used to look like that, or used to love me like that. So now we love each other differently. How wonderful.
I have so many questions, but I think I'm going to leave them for another podcast. I need to calm the enthusiasm. We could continue this discussion forever, it feels. So I am going to wrap up. And as a wrap up, what I like to do is I would want you, number one, to share with us your socials, talk to us a little bit about your circles. You're saying that you're going to bring your circle online, which is great so that more men can have access. You said that you have a course. So I would love for you to tell us how people can reach you and how they can reach these resources. But before you tell us all that, I would like for you to give us the one thing that if we distilled this whole conversation into one thing that you would hope that men and women, because we talked about both really, could walk away with. What is that one thing that you hope they gained from listening to this episode?
The birth of the parent is the death of your former self. And you can beautifully grieve that. And it's still going to be hard. And as you're born anew as parents, treat each other how you would a baby. Hold each other, be gentle, appreciate the newness of it, even though it's confusing and you don't know how to walk yet. It's okay. Just keep loving each other in it.
I love that. Thank you. If we could just write that down and see it every day to remind ourselves, because we forget. I think that a lot of us have the intention to be that way, but then daily life routines, things just come crashing into the wall and we forget that. And I think it would be a great reminder to just put it up somewhere, what you just said. Yeah. So could you please give us ways that we can reach you so that the audience who wants to engage with you, who wants to take your course, who wants to be in your circle can find you?
Sure, yeah. The easiest way to find me is either on Instagram. My handle is at raising_fathers, or on my website, which is raising-fathers.com. And what I do, I have a course for expectant fathers. That's a 6-week live online course that covers some of the challenges we spoke about today and how to essentially front load them so that when the beautiful chaos of new parenthood hits, you've already got all your storm supplies and you know how to batten down the hatch and be together and light that candle and eat that chocolate bar instead of frantically going, how do we survive this thing? I'm also going to release a version for new parents who missed that and our parents are going, I'm in the storm, where are the supplies? And that will be an online version as well. That's coming soon. So that's the courses. The community aspect, as I said, I do circles and I'll be introducing some workshops. Most likely we'll do one together, I think, Michaela. So look out for that too, with guests and people who have far more expertise than me, to be able to create spaces where we can both learn, but not just passively learn, particularly where we can share our experiences and hear stories without debate and judgment, just to listen and go, oh, okay, I've been through that one too. And then maybe hear from an expert about that. So that will be coming soon as well. There's also just your run-of-the-mill fathers circle that I run where we do that, and it's peer-to-peer based. I don't play the role of teacher or guide there. I'm just a facilitator to hold the experience, but I'm a participant too. And it's a way for us all to connect. And then there's mentoring, one-on-one mentoring as well, which is less structured, more led by you. And so if you're going, some of this resonated and I would love some support in a one-on-one context, I do that online and in person as well in a kind of regular one-on-one session. So yeah. That's one of the ways I work.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for sharing so openly and freely. I am sure that if people try the techniques that you offered, they are going to see results. The check-in, for example, I think people who listen regularly have gotten tired of me talking about the check-in strategy. And I love the fact that you shared how impactful it is for you as well. You're not just offering it to listeners, you're doing it yourself and you're seeing a difference. So thank you so much for being here and for being so generous with your wisdom. And I hope to have you back on very soon.
Anytime. Thank you for having me. And again, thank you for how much depth of insight you bring as well. It's so clear that you've been working with couples for a long time. It's touching, and I find myself laughing a lot when I feel deep resonance with a person when they're speaking. I laugh in recognition, and I was laughing a lot as you would describe things. They hit home with a specificity that screams experience. And yeah, thanks for everything you do. I really see it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.